Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the Health Made Simple show. I'm here with our host, Dr. Bart Precourt, who has been a healthcare practitioner for over 20 years, practicing a range of modalities, including chiropractic, kinesiology, acupuncture, functional nutrition and supplementation, and lab testing, all out of his clinic, Balance Health Studio in Seagrove Beach, Florida, as well as virtually on Zoom all over the world. He's also the founder of the Health Edge program, which is a cutting-edge health program for entrepreneurs and executives wanting to take their health to the next level. So he's worked with celebrities and athletes all around the world and is ready to answer your questions tonight. So we've already got a couple put in the chat here, which is awesome. Keep them coming and I will grab those to feed them on to him.
Yeah, and again, Karen, I'm excited again. A lot of good questions. I love this platform that we've been using lately. I know we've been doing a lot of weeks in a row here, but I love it because it gives me a good feel for what people are looking for. And the truth is, a lot of these questions, Karen, these are really the same questions I get every day, in the clinic and in the, the virtual consults we do. So I think I'm hoping, and the feedback I'm getting is that like people putting a lot of this to action, which is beautiful. And that's these little, simple health tips, these little strategies we'll give here. Of course, I'm not acting as anyone's doctor while we do this tonight. And obviously I got to say those kind of things. So we're not like prescribing over the internet here, but nonetheless, these little strategies. And if you have questions, of course, we can go a little bit deeper, but let's keep taking action. Now, action is the absolute best form of medicine that we have. So let's just keep rolling.
Yeah. Awesome. We were talking about that earlier, making sure that when we do learn things or we do take action, or when we go to a practitioner that we do take action.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Should we dive into the first question?
Do it.
All right. I've just gotten one come through on Facebook. So thoughts on IV bars. So IV infusion bars, I guess, for C, D, and zinc. Is this in addition to taking supplements daily?
This is a great question. I think that I'm glad someone brought this up. So IV bars, they're the bars for people familiar. Literally, you can go in, they're pretty cool. Like you go and sit in a lounge chair and they'll literally take a needle in your arm and pump it directly into your veins. So do I think these are good? I think they're good. Do I think that they're long-term optimally? No. Do I think that they're what we need right now to support us in this matrix against a virus? Not necessarily, but that needs explanation. So let's go to vitamin C first. So I am a fan. Like I've used IV therapy as well. A couple of years ago, I had pneumonia, and some friends of mine own a clinic locally, and we did IV like every other day. And I'll explain how and why the difference is. So this would be a good opportunity just to understand the differences between synthetics and whole food supplementation. And really where there's a difference here. So let's just say, for example, vitamin C, when you go to an IV bar and you get vitamin C, it's 100% what's called ascorbic acid. And if you guys are watching right now, if you're listening, think ascorbic acid is one part of vitamin C. Let's just say it's my thumb, and then you got 4 other fingers. And those are other things. That's the rooting factor, vitamin P, vitamin J, bioflavonoids. These are all the things we don't hear much about, but that's what make up vitamin C. That's the whole enzyme. Now that enzyme, so think of enzyme means active. It means it can do something for you. When we put vitamin C, just ascorbic acid in our body, it does a lot of really good things. The predominant thing that it does is it acidifies the body. And things like viruses and bacteria and cancers, they don't like when you've acidified the lower part, like the intestines and stuff like that. Your mouth needs to be a little bit different, but nonetheless, when for that purpose, adding large quantities of ascorbic acid can be very beneficial to the body. What that ascorbic acid does not do, that's really important right now, and this is why you guys heard me say it's very important that you have a whole food. Specifically, we use something called Cataplex C. The reason that whole enzyme is so important is that, imagine I want you to think that there's a cell, and outside of the cell, there's all kinds of vitamin C. Literally, there's vitamin C everywhere. It's super abundant. As long as you're taking it in, your body can really hold on to a bunch of it. A lot of it will be stored in the adrenal glands, but there'll be some extracellular and intercellular vitamin C. And that vitamin C, it's almost like these watchdogs out there. They're just looking around. What's going on out here? And then all of a sudden, it sees a bad guy. sees an antigen and goes, oh, you're not supposed to be here. And it sends electrical signals to the white blood cells, to your helper T and your helper B cells. And these guys then load up and be like, we're on our way, stay there. We're going to go kick some butt right now. So that part of what vitamin C does, the signaling, which is so important right now, can't happen if we don't have the full enzyme. That takes some other factors. So that was a long explanation for the IV, but nonetheless, the IV can be very, very effective short-term for, especially if you've got something going on. If you have bacteria in your body or virus and you load yourself up with ascorbic acid, you can do a really good job at stopping it, but it doesn't necessarily call the defenders in and really elicit that entire immune response. So don't make it an either or. If you're going to use it in addition to. There's no like easy way out of this. It's very expensive too, but I'm all right with all that. Like anything moving us forward. So I think they asked vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. So it's vitamin C and zinc are extremely inefficiently stored by the human body. Inefficiently. So you need zinc every day. You need vitamin C every day. So that would be some very expensive IVs. So supplementation is actually is much more effective in those scenarios. The vitamin D, your body will hold on a little bit longer. And we got to be mindful too, of not pushing too much D, because you won't do that much in one sitting in D. So long story short, can be very effective. I've used it in the past. I've even done it with some B vitamins, etc. Yeah, your B and C vitamins by the next day, for the most part, they'll be all out of your body, even the zinc.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Okay, next question. Dear Dr. Bart, when I asked you for a recommendation for my father, who played NFL for 5 years and now has early stage dementia, you mentioned MCT oil. Before giving it to him, I did some research on MCT oil and brain health so that I could explain it to my parents. In my research, I became across this product, which is an exonerous ketone supplement. I'm not only concerned about my father, but I personally want to do things to support my brain as I get older. What is your opinion about ketones, ketogenic diet, and if this is a healthy or risky option to try? Does Standard Process have something that is similar? I also have a friend who was diagnosed with brain cancer, and I was reading that a ketogenic diet could be beneficial for him too. So, long question. There was a couple of things in there.
I think I got that. So we're gonna break this down a little bit. So there was a couple questions here. What do I think about taking, like, what kind of actions can we take for brain health? And is a ketogenic diet good for that? And then the second question I'm going to say is using exogenous ketones. So a ketone, and I'll go into this in just a moment. I think that's the second question. Are these good? Is there any risk involved in here? And then what about cancer? All right, so we'll chunk these down. One, I'm a huge fan of the ketogenic diet, a healthy ketogenic diet, that is. And that is one. And the way that we do that, so I'll give the simple explanation of that. Typically, it's a high fat, medium protein, super low carbohydrate diet. And what really makes this a ketogenic diet is during the diet, does your body become fat adaptive and learn how to burn fat for fuel? Most of us are running off of carbohydrates and sugar. So we have to get rid of the carbohydrates and sugar. You got to get them out of your life, out of your diet. So your body then adapts to only burning fat for fuel. When we burn fat for fuel, then you produce the byproduct of that is something called a ketone. Ketones are like brain fire. Your brain loves them. It literally lights your brain. Your brain works better. It's one of the reasons I'm such a fan of it. So, because like for me, I think I've mentioned many times in the show here, I don't eat when I work. And that could be 15 hours, but often it's like an 18 or 20 hour stretch because I need my brain to always be sharp. You don't want to be my last patient of the day and like I'm brain dead, right? Because I ate a big sandwich and then I hit a lull or something like that. You want me sharp all the time. So I have trained my body to be able to slip in and out of ketosis, to burn ketones. To this day, Karen, it's been probably 5, 6, 7 years now. I still check my blood glucose and my ketones every day I work. And it lets me know. So that is the gold standard. So if someone says, I'm on a ketogenic diet, awesome. but are you producing ketones? That is the key. As your blood sugar dropped and your ketones go up. So the people that I have in my concierge group and I do some of the private stuff with, all of them, I have monitored blood glucose and ketones because that's the gold standard.
Every day.
Yeah, in the beginning, every day. And then after a while, we can back off. But I've been doing it for years. And the reason I do it for years, it's like a built-in coach. And it also lets me know that what if my blood glucose and ketones change, but my diet hasn't? And this is important because then I have to look at things like the way that my mind is working, how much sleep have I gotten, et cetera. So this is where, like, we did the fall challenge last year where we really helped people reduce the amount of carbohydrate intake. This is where we start to prepare our bodies to get into this ketosis. So I am a huge fan of the ketogenic diet, and it takes a minute. So, if you really want to do the deep dive, probably best to kind of get someone that can walk you through it, like myself or some other coaches that are familiar with it, they understand it, they know the difference between male and female and what to expect, and even age and lifestyle and stress. All of those will participate, but I find most people have huge success in ketosis. With that being said, for the father in this situation, I think the diagnosis was dementia.
Dementia, yeah.
Here's been my experience with dementia, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. One, these are tough. They're very, very tough. And especially to watch someone that deteriorate. It's very, very difficult to watch. I can't emphasize enough how important it is. At the very first signs, you immediately go all in. No dabbling, nothing. And I'll tell you, Karen, though, so oftentimes I'm working with a generation of people that are a little bit older, usually than me, that they're getting in their ways and they like their ice cream at night and they like this. I haven't had, listen, I'm always looking to improve it. I haven't had great success taking those people that have already kind of like started those symptoms and getting them to draw the line and be like, I got to go all in now. So if you have family support, like this, like we're talking in this situation, anything and everything you can, have them watch this video. I don't know that we can reverse it yet. You can stop it in its tracks. And that's really what you're looking for. You're looking for, all right, this is what I had to deal with and I could sustain this, it'd be awesome. And that I have seen, and that's what most of the other practitioners will tell us for our own health. Every one of us listening right now, what causes those things, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, it's sugar and carbohydrates and inflammation on the brain. So how do we stop it? We reduce it. And that's getting rid of all those things and getting a clean fuel source to burn. And that's ketones. So as much as I can emphasize, yes, a ketogenic diet, have someone walk you through it, because doing a dirty keto is no good anyways. And learning how to monitor blood glucose and ketones daily, real simple, real easy. And doing it, it's like motivating. So it becomes like a thing you almost look forward to every day. What's my score today? So the third part of this question is exogenous ketones. And this comes up. So what that is, folks, is, so remember, it's hard to make ketones. Like, you literally have to burn fat for fuel. I'm 51 years old. Most of my entire life, I've been burning carbohydrates and sugar for fuel, because you get hungry. You get pre-workout, post-workout, like get up in the middle of the night and eat, all of those things. And I'm not the only one doing that. That's most of us.
Yeah.
We eat. We're a little bit hungry, a little bit tired. We just eat. But to burn fat for fuel is not easy. Well, it's not familiar. So the reward is huge. So when you start to do it and you get these ketones, your body loves it. It literally lights your brain up. The reason I recommended the MCT oil, that medium chain triglyceride, that's what our brains are made up of, these fats. And those things, like everything from your fish oils, your cod liver oils, all of these, butter, coconut oil, all brain fuels. That's what they all convert into, brain fuels. So taking ketones, so there's a couple companies out there that make these exogenous ketones, some better than others. Some literally, they're like all wrapped up with like caffeine and stuff, and it just lights you up. Here's the deal. Like, will it light your brain up? Will it light your brain up? Yes, it will. Is it the same as you producing them? No. In the fine print of all of these companies, they'll say words, basically they'll say, this shit should be short-term use only. Ultimately, it's same as producing ketones from going into ketosis. When you take exogenous ketones, you are not in ketosis.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw a little caveat into this particular individual's question. If her father said, I get it. So NFL, by the way, it's the National Football League. That's where they put on helmets and smash each other. And back in the day, it was just smash each other. And like, as long as you could stand up, they put you back in the game. So there's a lot of head traumas.
Yeah.
With that as well. So in the event that was there, and this individual who I know, I absolutely love her and her family. If she said, listen, I can get my dad all in, and he was going to go all in, and we used a little bit of exogenous ketones to light the fire, I'd do it. I'd be careful not to keep them on, because we won't know if they're getting into ketosis. We won't know that if you're taking exogenous ketones. So I might say, here, try a little of this. This is what we have to look forward to. But we've got to get the body to become a fat adaptive, become fat burning, and make the ketones by themselves.
Yeah. Awesome. That's yeah. I mean, there's things you can do, I get, well, not to reverse it, but there's things you can do if you go all in. I love that.
Yeah, and Karen, I think as time goes, we're going to see, before we didn't even know how to slow it down. So
yeah,
strategies that we're using in these last 5 or 10 years effectively.
Yeah.
And every year we get a little better at doing what we want to push. So do I think a lot to hold in brain health and technology? I do. For those of you out there right now that are looking to increase and have longevity with your brain, again, get rid of sugar. Sugar shrinks your brain. And I'll say that again, sugar shrinks your brain.
And alcohol, right? Like, unfortunately, doesn't that shrink your brain as well, or like affect your brain?
And it slows down your liver, cheese. So like, and I get it. And like, I get when people say, well, like maybe a little bit's okay. And again, moderately poisoning the human body is still not cool. I get it. And I'm not saying never, but when you have strategies, so like one of the strategies I try to teach my clients is, if you play, you pay. What is that? If you go out on Friday night and you go out and you have your cocktails and do what you do and you play real hard, Sunday or on Saturday morning when you get up, you're fasting. Instead of eating, you fast. And you burn all of that stuff right back out of your body. So your body doesn't rely on all those, simple carbohydrates and sugars. And you literally kill off the weak cells. Remember, that's one of the big victories of intermittent fasting, is that we get to kill off the weak cells, only the strong survive. So again, if we have those strategies in play, it's not a never game, but it is a game that we choose to win because we're going to play really well. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah. Kathleen just put in the chat here, alcohol is sugar. Sure is. You got a follow-up question about the brain health. Does Prevagen help for Alzheimer's?
Prevagen, I'm not super familiar with this, but it's ringing a bell. I'm gonna pause and comment on that because I'm not super familiar with that, but I will comment something else that does help the brain. Microcirculation. Ultimately, what happens is we deflate and we we make the brain tight and it doesn't function as well. We need increased microcirculation. One of the best herbs in the world for that is ginkgo. That is one of the ginkgo. Ginkgo increases microcirculation. So I can use ginkgo in healing, like a joint or scar tissue or something that's been damaged through trauma. But most of the time, we always think of like ginkgo for making, lighten our brain up. And it's very good. And there's a synergistic, like I use a brain tonic with ginkgo and bacopa in there. So we get a little bit of sharpness to like short and long-term memory. So feed the brain with lots of fats. That's where like the MCT oil in your coffee. If you just have coffee, we're going to dehydrate the system. Yes, you'll get a surge in the morning, light your brain up, but the after effect is dehydration, which then creates inflammation. When we add that fat to like that bulletproof coffee, and listen, the MCT oil could be a particular brand, or it could be coconut oil, or it could be butter. But adding some level of fat into your coffee will reduce the negative impact of just the caffeine. And therefore you still get those fats up into your brain. And then your essential fatty acids, absolutely imperative. That's why I could take a broad sweep and say I would suggest everyone being on like cod liver oil is my old school favorite. And then again, those fatty acids are really effective for the brain, especially specifically things like DHA. So DHA, a fatty acid, and then things like Ginkgo and Bacopa, both of those are super good for the brain.
Okay, love it. Follow up from the sugar. What about stevia?
Not a huge fan. And I think we've talked about this a little bit on the show. So whole leaf stevia is better. It's an alternative, but more and more clinically, what I find is that if we have a lot of sugar substitutes, even these natural ones, xylitol, and other things that are just better, like stevia is better than sugar. Yet what I find is that it doesn't get us away from sugar and really richening our natural taste buds, so we can taste the bitters and the sours and the sweets. And the salties, and get all of these taste buds woken up back again. Because if we're still just kind of listening to sweet, it leaves us. And this is just, because I used to recommend those all the time, Karen. So if someone caught my videos from 4 years ago, I would say stevia, number one. Now, I'm just like keeping you hooked on sweetness.
Yeah.
Trying to pull it out is a better strategy. And remember, fats and sugars will satiate us. And learning to bring good fats back into the diet is a very effective way to become very satiated.
Yeah, for sure. I have a follow-up question here. Did you have a Ginkgo supplement? Was there a Ginkgo product that you recommend?
Yeah, so there's two. There is literally something called Ginkgo Forte, which we use in the clinic. We make a brain tonic, Karen. We use a brain tonic. It's a liquid, works phenomenal. I literally just did a shot. I think I've said that before. I'm going to do public speaking and I got to be kind of sharp on my feet. I always do a shot, and it's a hefty shot. It doesn't taste awesome. It's not bad. I don't know. It tastes like dirt or something. So if they're local, they want to check into it. My beautiful assistant has just brought it to me here. And there
we go.
See it? So literally it looks like this. So we use that. And in this concoction we made, I put a little bit of ginseng. Ginseng is phenomenal for physical stamina. So those three things are in there: Bacopa, Ginkgo, and a little bit of Korean ginseng. So that's just a formula we used over the years. It's phenomenal. But and like a lot of other herbs, they're absolutely phenomenal. And at the same time, though, if you're eating a Snickers in one hand and doing a shot of this, like you're probably wasting your money a little bit, because the herbs, the cleaner the body is, everything just works a little better.
Totally. So if they do want to get one of those brain tonics, give the clinic a call.
Yeah, that, because we literally make those, we concoct those, and they can go. They could go, if you have a link there, they could go to the website link, the Insight one, and just type in Ginkgo or Bacopa, and they're phenomenal.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I put the link to the Ginkgo Forte in there.
Yeah, through MediHerb, those tablets will be there.
The Bacopa ones?
Correct, in Ginkgo.
And Ginkgo, yeah. Okay, awesome. Cool. Another question about brain supplements. Do you know a brain supplement called Cognitex by Life Extension Foundation?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I've seen it. I've come across it. I don't know all the details in it. The answer is yes, and I can't speak to some of the details of it. But anytime you're looking at a supplement, one, just roll over to the back of it, and what we want to look at the ingredients that are in it. Not necessarily just the assay, meaning like there's 1,000% or 50%. Look underneath it. Look at the ingredients and see what they're telling you. Sometimes people think, well, I don't see the ingredients. There's none here.
That's a sign.
It's and I know it's kind of so. Life Extension, I think I've seen a lot of their products over the years. And I think some of them are pretty good, and they do definitely infuse a fair amount of synthetics. The challenge with synthetics, folks, is this, and again, for me, I used to use them all. I used them in my clinic until I learned more about them. And one of the challenges with synthetics, something that's made in a laboratory, doesn't come from a root plant tree, et cetera, is that when we put it into the body, when it comes in as an isolate, remember, they're all synergistic, meaning that they have other things they're supposed to be with. So when they go into their body, by itself, it's inactive. So it has to draw on the other things. So it actually pulls nutrients from the body to become active in your body. And that is why, like, I can't argue when someone, like in the medical profession, that they're anti-supplement, because they do the studies and say, well, long-term use of this supplement and this supplement showed a deficiency, and it's real. And that's not done with whole food supplements. We only see that happen with synthetics. So you got to kind of like look at the cards and play the best cards that you can. So I don't know that product specifically, but I've seen it come across my desk, and I would say that it's probably decent.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's move on. We've got a couple more questions here. Dr. Bart, what causes hives and what can we do about it?
So hives typically means that you've had this like surge of histamine, and histamine is, essentially part of the immune system. We don't love it, but something's either entered the body or we created a psychosomatic response, meaning a stress response that was too fast, too much, and then body responded. So hives usually are trying to be expressed. We're trying to kick something out through the largest eliminative organ of the human body, which is the skin. So yes, we can do something about it. And really, Karen, most of the time, this will boil back down to liver function.
Okay.
So the goal here is that we're going to help the liver be able to handle whatever was the influx. So we use something called Antronex. Antronex, I don't want to call it an antihistamine because that's not how it works. It has an antihistamine effect, meaning it helps drain the liver. So by helping drain the liver, it gives the liver more capacity to handle whatever's going on in there. So I use that, and then there's usually, it depends on if I see it firsthand, you can always use, and we've talked about it in the home medicine cabinet, we've talked about having calcium lactate powder. If you have hives, you can take a teaspoon up to a tablespoon of that, mix it in about 20 ounces of water or juice or something like that. You can mix it. And anytime you see something in the skin raised, you see, hives, poison ivy, anything, sunburns, like where it's swelled up or anything like that, that part of your body is then deficient of tissue calcium. And if we can get that calcium back into the tissue, we want a super ionizable, super soluble source of calcium. And the one we use is something called calcium lactate, where that calcium lactate powder would be perfect. So hives is typically almost like this, I want to call it like a hyper or too much, but it's a huge response from your immune system to try to push something out of your body. So we want to be mindful of how that happened. A couple of weeks ago, one of my dogs got bit by an ant. Poof. Instead of hives, response. So immediately, I start pumping as much as I can this Antronex into them. And sometimes that's not enough. And then you got to kind of go to, kind of take the next level. But nonetheless, hives is typically an increased amount of histamine. So anything we can do to lower that, if you're frequently getting it, really start to do like a food journal, food log. There's probably something you're triggering.
Yeah, for sure. That can be a good thing for lots of different reactions. Like keep a food diary for a week. You can see what's happening, whether something's triggering different things.
Yeah, food diary is always expose something, like how much.
Yeah, because you don't realize, you think you remember what you ate, but when I've done it, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I didn't remember at all. All right, next question. What do you feel about peptides?
Peptides. Ultimately, I think they're awesome, but I don't think we need to take them as an isolate. I know that's going to go against a lot of what people say. Again, so it's a big topic right now. Taking these peptides, especially after working out and muscle growth and all that stuff. Again, I don't think it's something that we need. I think there's about 50 other things that would be on my priority list prior to that. Eating a whole food diet, intermittent fast, getting your body into ketosis, reducing inflammation, getting sugar out of your life, getting better sleep, and then the peptides down the road. So that and I think they're good, don't get me wrong. But in that, I would want all of those in place before you started to then use peptides. Now, there are certain applications for peptides that literally, when you hear people talk about them doing amazing things for the body, yes. But you're going to want to get all those other things in place if you're going to start to use peptides.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Just follow up on the products we were talking about before. Is for sun rash, you said calcium lactate. What about the Antronex? Is that good to take for a sun rash too, or more the reaction like Hives?
That's more for the reaction of hives. So really anything inflammatory, like like you puff daddy stuff is what I call it.
That's more than a sun rash. That's
So sun rash, real quick, we're going to use calcium lactate. If we get sun rash, sunburn. So I think of sun rash as a little bit different than sunburn. Sun rash, like it swells, like we're getting poisoning at that point. And so we got to be very mindful. That's actually a little almost like moving ourselves into like a vitamin D poisoning. We're getting too much built up in there. So that's calcium lactate, the same sun formula that we use, vitamin F or Cataplex F.
Okay.
That'll help transfer the calcium out of the bloodstream and into the tissue as fast as can be. So we can really see some good results with that. And that vitamin F, that Cataplex F, really supports oxygenation of the tissue, et cetera. And then really what we want to do is give it the healing capacity. And this is where we're going to use that full enzyme vitamin C called Cataplex C. This is a perfect example where ascorbic acid wouldn't do anything for sunburn, where full enzyme Z immediately goes back in and helps your body bind collagen. When you're sunburned, you have a collagen binding issue, and this is how we age our skin. So that full active enzyme vitamin C back in there, that's the quicker we build things up. So, and I'll tell you firsthand that like these last couple of years, so I've always been very, very fair skinned and burned easy, got pink is really what I did. And now I do, I'm like pink. I don't even.
I'm the same. Yeah.
But now the difference, Karen, is that I like almost always, if I'm going out in the sun, I take like I call it a small handful, like Cataplex C, calcium, I use the calcium lactate tablets, the same thing, and Cataplex F, small handful every time. And I don't go out in the sun more than an hour really ever, but I'll do yard work and stuff like that. And it really helps me make like a tan. Like I'm like tanning.
Wow, there you go. Tan formula. I love it.
So I don't go as far as calling myself tan, but I'm not pink anymore, which is good.
That's awesome. I love it. Awesome. Very cool. Natural tan formula. All right. Next question we got in the chat here. How long is the protocol for treating EBV?
EBV, Epstein-Barr virus. Great question. Typically, I always recommend at least a 90-day beginning point. And it's not that hard. I know it sounds like a long time. Well, you got to kind of pay attention. If you've listened to our podcast before on Epstein-Barr, the key here is how we use the 4 different herbs. And we're going to pulse dose them for 90 days. So we really want to confuse and then initiate, an activity and then beat it up and then pull it out, make sure we have a lot of good drainage. But that's really how we want to approach Epstein-Barr. There are certain viruses that the goal is that there's certain viruses we can kill off because they've attached to weak cells and we can get them out of the body. And then there's certain ones that we actually, we inhibit them from ever being active again. Epstein-Barr is one of them. So the goal here is that it's about a 90-day process. And if you've had it before, because Epstein-Barr is a virus that we don't necessarily remove it. Okay, so similar to like COVID right now, we're able to kill off those weak cells, especially if we have some antibodies, memory T B cells. We can get that out of the body, and same thing like the influenza A and stuff like that. But a little bit different with Epstein-Barr. It's a stealth pathogen, very intelligent. It knows how to hide in your tissue. So we're going to go in there through this protocol, the 90-day protocol. It's called the stealth pathogen protocol, and we're going to inhibit it from doing anything. And especially now that we're really good at taking our vitamin C, D, and zinc, the zinc is going to really kind of lock it down. And then what I encourage you to do at least once a year, do that protocol if you are currently battling Epstein-Barr. and it's like showing up in your life and having adverse effects, you might need to repeat that. Do it for 90 days, take 30 days off, then go back and do it again. I have some people that go for 90, take 30 off, go for 90, take 30 off. And they'll do that 3 or 4 rounds to really, like squat down. So it's kind of a whatever it takes. But for most of us, I'd say doing that stealth protocol 90 days once a year is awesome.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, next question. Why do I have food cravings when I don't sleep well?
Kind of an easy answer. Really, those food cravings are really sugar and carbohydrate cravings. It's lack of energy, and our body always wants to survive. It always wants to be efficient. It always wants to perform in the moment. So if you're in the middle of something and you haven't had sleep, but you need energy to perform your task, could be working, could be on the phone, could be riding a bike, your body says, well, we need energy, and it sends you a signal. And it sends your brain a signal, and your brain basically looks through the encyclopedia and it goes, need energy. Where can I get it? And it goes, huh, look at that. French fries, Snickers, soda pop, Red Bull. Like, the brain just literally goes, I need energy. Where can it come? It's not going to discriminate. So it goes through all these different things and it looks at these instead of saying, it's different than saying, what does my body need right now? That's a different one. How do I get energy? So typically, if you don't sleep, your body is going to either need food to compensate for it or caffeine. And hopefully all of us, especially after a year and a half now of going through pandemic, that we're starting to recognize that we need more timeouts in life.
Yeah.
I got some people that are in trouble because they were going to muscle through it. They were going to push through. And that's not body doesn't lie, when it says it's tired and cold and hurting, it is. That's way different than being on a soccer field and just being exhausted, right? That's a different. That's totally different. But when our bodies, and especially most of us, most of you listening here today, we're not 20 anymore. And if we don't learn how to listen real fast, we may be the reason, not some virus or flu or whatever. We might be the reason that we get ourselves in trouble because we're not good listeners.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's with all food cravings, really. I mean, if your body's craving something, I'm like this, like I crave sugar when I don't, I guess we all do, but that really is the one time that I crave sugar the most is when I'm tired, and it's just a sign to be like, hey, need to get a little bit more sleep, slow down, have an early night.
Yeah, I think when I don't sleep, mine's caffeine.
Oh yeah.
And the funny thing is, my body can only take a certain amount of caffeine, and then it becomes this wrestling match where it upsets my stomach. Like I get to a point and it says no more.
Me too. It actually tastes different. It's weird. Like my body gets to a point with caffeine that, like, if I've ever done it, that I can't drink anymore. It doesn't taste like coffee anymore. It doesn't taste good. Like the taste changes, and I can't drink it. It doesn't taste like coffee anymore. It's weird.
Yeah, but that's your body's natural way of saying no.
You're done.
I'll still try to force it down and be like, no, like, what am I doing? It's begging me to stop drinking this. Like, I'm saying no, like, stop doing this to me.
Yeah. Well, that moves on to our next question quite well, which is how come some healthy people still get sick?
Man, this is another great question, especially in the era of this. And I see this come up a lot, Karen, where people will say, well, I know so-and-so, they were so healthy. Man, how did they get COVID? Or how did they get so run down? Why is it affecting them so bad? So I want to speak to that probably in like 2 different ways. One, we can't always judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
And that's really, really important to understand. So, being in my field and doing what I do and reading labs and knowing people and doing deep dives. And that's why, when I do a health consult, I like to do a deep dive because we just uncover things about histories and autoimmune conditions or whatever it may be, but you don't see it on the outside. So typically what people perceive as healthy is not overweight. That's like one standard.
Yeah.
And if they go for a run in the morning, that's like the other standard, right? And we have that perception. Like, man, I run every day, but I'll give you a reality. We joked about this earlier. I don't think it's uncommon or unfair to say, or even unjust to say, listen, we have a lot of people, they go out for a run in the morning, and then on the way to work, they go to Starbucks, pick up a processed coffee, pour some sugar into it, maybe latte, frappe, whatever they are, right? Pour some extra syrups in it, grab a muffin on the way. So they went from exercise to pure sugar and processed food, and then who knows what they eat during the day. That's not health.
Yeah.
You know, I've had the luxury of looking at labs.
Yeah.
C-reactive proteins, inflammatory markers like homocysteine and hemoglobin A1C, and blood sugar markers and stuff. And a lot of times, the book, like it doesn't always look like what it is. So that's one reason. And I'll say that because I'll also say this, and I want to kind of defend the healthy people out there in saying this. I have yet to discover, listen, healthy people, you're not unhealthy if you have symptoms. That's the biggest farce on the earth. So symptoms are not bad or good. They are how your body talks to you.
Yeah.
You're super healthy and you put something really toxic in your body, you will be very expressive about it. Okay. I give my example of a little child. The first time they're given that apple juice bottle, they're going to scream because it's all sugar and it rips them up and creates inflammation in every square inch of their body. And they're screaming, and we keep stuffing the bottle back in their mouth until they can tolerate it. The healthy baby turns into a sugar addict very, very fast, and then it needs it. So the healthy person can have more symptoms because they have a cleaner system. That's very, very common. So that's one part that's real. Pain tolerance, that's a whole different category. The second part of this, Karen, is what I see more nowadays than ever. And I think everyone listening, you can attest to this, and I want you to be humble and, and show some grace with everyone around. It's scary right now. And anxiety creates things much, much worse. If you take a super healthy person, the people listening to this, me or something like that, and I get, let's just say tonight, I don't feel really good. My brain starts thinking, man, I wonder if that's COVID. And then I get, maybe my throat tightens up a little, my chest gets a little tighter, and I start to wheeze a little bit. Maybe I start to monitor my blood oxygen, and those things start to change. And all of a sudden, my focus changes. And now I have literally created anxiety within my body. That fear, that anxiety, because, listen, if it happened 3 years ago, I just think, oh my God, I overdid it. And I go to bed. But now I think, am I going to go to the ICU? Am I going to die? And this is real. It is real for anyone that's just turns their phone on right now, because it's in the back of our minds. And this is legit. And I think right now we're seeing super healthy people. I shared with you a personal experience with one of my friends, that super, super tough dude, yet he's really challenged right now because it's both physical and emotional. And that's what we call psychosomatic. So everyone listen, I want you to hear what I'm about to say. This is a little bit of a bummer, but this is as real as it gets. On the CDC page, you can find the 2 top causes for death with COVID, the 2 top comorbidities, the top 2. I've been quoting them wrong for a while. I did not know the second one. Number 1 is obesity. And I think everyone was like, yeah, I get it. There's all kinds of issues with true obesity. Number 2, comorbidity. Cause of death with COVID is anxiety.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that, that is why, Karen, I talk about it, and I'm going to again tonight talk about it, that we got to become connectors, not dividers, because impact we are having on children. So listen, if you're an adult and you want to lose it, go lose it in your own space, in your own time, but do not let us show some grace with each other and look where we're putting our energy. I know young children right now that never knew what anxiety was and are literally having panic attacks, type panic attacks, and they're panicked about going to the hospital. If that individual catches something, if that individual, and I'm going to say even this, has an adverse reaction from a drug or medication or a shot, that individual is going to be very vulnerable for anything.
Yeah.
Because in that sympathetic dominant state, here's why. And listen close, because it is a nutrient deficiency that causes this death. This is going to sound insane, but the nutrient deficiency is oxygen. Oxygen is a nutrient. So when we get into those anxious states, we are literally depriving our body of oxygen. oxygen levels change. We're measuring that when you have COVID because it's an affinity to the lungs. And it's just this storm. And the bummer is the very people that are trying to like tell us that this is the issue are the ones causing it. So
it's crazy. Yeah.
And I pray and beg for everyone that hears this tonight or send this and share this out, that we start to show some grace and support each other and love on each other. There's enough stuff. It's not, let's all do our part and just like supporting others, like saying, hey, listen, I trust and respect your choice as a human being. They don't have to go.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Just as a human being, and we can just leave it at that. And to protect your own energy. And
it's a big one. Yeah.
To become an observer of our own energy, key. Yeah, it's key. I talk about this on a daily basis. You know, I'm in the health associate, so this is what we do. And so we have all these conversations. So every day we almost have this like powwow. All right, if this conversation goes up, where are we going with it? And we real quickly, here's the 2 questions we're going to ask. And therefore we know what road we're headed on. And it's always going to be respected, you know, empower, respect the choice, help them move forward, whatever decision that's made. And I think it's so important. And I also, that's why I do have faith that the greater good of mankind will show up. And we're just being tested on a massive, massive level right now. Every individual, every one of us that has frowned upon the decisions of our neighbors and our friends and family. Now it's time for us to gut check. We might need to call them back up. You know, listen, definitely was emotional in that moment. I was afraid. I had fear, worry, and concern, and I put it on you.
Yeah.
Because you do what I do. It makes my fear go away.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we need to at least consider when people are jumping at you. If they have, and you agree to do what they do, to some weird way, they think that their fear goes away a little bit because other people are doing it. So let's support those people and give them some grace. And let's make sure we become observers of our energy. And if we do that, that second leading cause of comorbidity with COVID right now, and it breaks my heart to see it. And there's good people, strong women like yourself, men and women like that are watching and listening to this tonight. You've been strong all your life. You never had anxiety. And all of a sudden it's creeping in. And and we have all the tools we can use for that, but it starts with the acknowledgement of it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that is something that I always try and do when someone does come at me, or I've had even people at times in a supermarket tell me to go back, like have a go. I always try and remember that they're scared. Like if you remember that other person who might not be acting that great to you is like, they're scared, it's their fear, it does take away some of your anger to react back. You know, like I try to, like, if I'm feeling like I'm like angry, to react back because you're like being aggressive towards me. If I try to remember that they're scared, it kind of makes me, it dissolves I just go, okay, you know, you're having a tough day today. That's why you're reacting like that. But I love that. We all need a reminder. I mean, we talked about this protecting your energy kind of thing last week, and then we need a daily reminder. So since we're kind of talking about this topic, we do have a question here in the chat. Can you get COVID from people who are vaccinated who are shedding? Do you want to give a couple of thoughts on shedding? People are talking about or scared of that at the moment as well.
Yeah, so I'll speak to that a little bit. So can you get COVID from people that are vaccinated? Let's just leave it at that. And the answer is yes. And that's just not Bart making it up. Literally, Dr. Fauci came on August 2nd, right on live TV, national TV, and said people that have been vaccinated and that are unvaccinated are equal spreaders at this point. And we just need to leave it at that. Shedding, to my best understanding, I've never heard about that until this year. Never in my life. And yeah, so there's a lot of newbies this year. And what that really is when people are exposed to a vaccine, which again, this is not a typical vaccine. You're not introducing an antigen in this situation. So when I did a deep dive on the shedding, I'm not sure that shedding applies to today's situation with this vaccine. So I prefer to kind of leave it there, meaning that what the old school thought was this, Karen, was that you put a vaccine into your body, you put the antigen in your body had a response to it, and it created essentially an antigen you're kicking out of your body. You had shedding, and you could expose someone else. And there's like some pretty significant research papers on that. But all of that I've seen in the past. But with that, I'm not saying it doesn't take place, but this again is going to be one of those situations where this is why time is our best friend. Like, time is going to tell these things. Right now, we don't know with this mRNA, with these spike protein type vaccine, the real impact that it's going to have. We have guesses, but that's it. And that's not an emotional statement. We need time for us to learn more about this. And what's typical when we're talking about immune responses and immune modulation and understanding the way vaccines, 5 to 7 years. That's typically like that's when we're going to have the most data to make a decision about what is this doing or not doing for us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it'll just take time, right? These things do take time.
But I think the better part of that question is are we seeing breakthroughs? And the answer is yes. Yes, the answer is yes. And especially now that we're seeing more, and I think this really changed with this Delta variant. I think now we're seeing a whole nother level of breakthroughs of people that are vaccinated, and we don't have the data. So this is a good example of just, we don't have the data right now on the effectiveness of the vaccine with the Delta variant. It wasn't studied. We have absolutely no idea. So when someone says it's safe and effective for that, it's misinterpreting what it was safe and effective for. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, I mean, good for people to be able to ask those questions, because sometimes also it does take some of the fear away to be able to talk to someone about it, right? I think that's something else we could practice, is having conversations with people where we disagree with their opinions, because we're not very good at that, or a lot of people aren't very good at that, right? Like having conversations where the other person has a different opinion. But I know firsthand it's difficult.
It's difficult.
So, and I've said it before, we're here for you guys as much as we possibly can. It's very difficult to have an open conversation and learn and ask questions simultaneously. That whole, the art of asking questions has kind of been almost like shunned upon, which we that. So let me real quick update. I know we're running close in time here, but so I leave tomorrow. I'm going down to Orlando, and I'm speaking at one of the largest health conventions in our country. Last year they didn't have it, and this is the first time I'm speaking there, so I'm super jazzed about it. I'll be speaking to all the different practitioners, and the topic just happens to be the immune system. So I'm happy to share with all my fellow colleagues, chiropractors, acupuncturists, naturopaths from around the country, down in Orlando next week. So I'm super jazzed about that. And if anyone's wondering, what am I going to teach them? Same stuff I'm teaching you guys. same language, same conversation. Encourage them to level up, encourage them to give love and serve to their patients, their families, and their friends. Same conversations about become connectors, not dividers. Same conversation, repeating it over and over again about vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. Remember, zinc will bind onto that virus and keep that viral load down. Vitamin D is the wall around your castle. The bigger and stronger that wall is, the less viruses can get it in. And another study just came out, Karen, and I got to at least throw this out there. I know we're running late. But again, another study, this time it was of thousands of people, of if you had normal levels of vitamin D, you were 80% less likely to even contract the COVID virus. 80% less likely, just having normal vitamin D levels. So
it's crazy.
A no-brainer. And the vitamin we talked about earlier, it's sitting outside of your cell looking around. Who you at? What you doing here? And then your immune system. So let's do our best. Those actions are like no-brainers. Yeah,
I love it. Awesome. Well, we're excited for you. Rock your talk on Friday. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, very, very cool. All right, well, let's move into our last question. We're out of time as always. What is one action that our listeners can take this week to move them towards their goal of becoming superhuman?
I mentioned it earlier, and I think really become this week, let yourself become an observer of your energy.
Yeah.
Gut check, literally see where your energy is going. Because where energy goes, concentration goes, energy flows even more. So check it all across the board. You're learning to level up, you're getting excited, you're getting creative again. A lot of people losing their creativity because they're focused on, fight or flight types things. So be an observer of your own energy. Just check, like, if you were teaching your child, your best friend, your wife, your husband, like, this is the way you should do it, would it be good? Like, would you tell them to focus 12 hours a day on a Facebook feed that people are arguing? Like we're all guilty. So like, let's be observers of our energy, and let's make sure that we are moving in that direction of connecting and not dividing.
Oh, yes. Let's love it. Let's all do that for sure. We need some of that. So that's awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We always love having you, and we will be back same time next week for another episode of the Health Made Simple show.
Yeah, as usual, love having you guys here. Keep doing the thing, keep sharing out, keep spreading love. And as usual, we're going to take deliberate action, real deliberate action for our minds, our body, overall wellness. That'll be awesome.